And Jocelyn, you have such a beautiful strength. And for somebody to get up and be so sick, but still to perform, that's a survivor. And Jocelyn, you'll be able to survive this. Alina.
Oh my God. The way I had to jump on here and talk about this documentary, because I'm not gonna lie, I started watching the documentary for nostalgia reasons, right? Like, I'm a millennial, I'm 31 years old, I grew up on reality TV, it is what it is. But looking back at it through the lens of my 31-year-old eyes, I'm in shock at what we were watching. And I'll be honest, at the time I wasn't paying attention. I was not paying attention to the rhetoric, which makes it even worse. Like, the fact that our young brains were consuming such hateful content, if you really think about it, is just beyond. And I just first want to say, I will give credit to Tyra for this image she's created. For example, she's a Black woman. I understand that back then, especially, and even now, I'm sure, for Black women in modeling, it was probably the most horrendous thing, right? When you think about Naomi Campbell, who came before her, I believe, and when you think about Tyra Banks and Iman and all of these young women they were young women at the time, all these young Black women at the time, they were probably put through the ringer more than their counterparts, right? Especially back then, especially what we're seeing with Epstein. I just think it was toxic as shit, regardless of your race, regardless of your age, because we're seeing a lot of kids, children. I just think these modeling agencies are horrific, and I think they're ran by predators. So I don't want to take away the fact that she definitely made her own way in this field. She is beyond successful, etc., etc. However, that is not an excuse for horrific behavior, right? I think we can all agree with that. The reason why I put a lot of heat on Tyra is because, like what she said in the documentary, she owns this. She created this. And I know that, and I'm jumping a little bit, I know that later on she doubles down like, well, I'm not production. No, you own this. It was something you created, which, whether we like it or not, is a huge empire, America's Next Top Model. So you can't deny that. Now, what you do with your empire and what you do with your newfound popularity, and especially because I do think she had an intention to break young women, especially young women of color, into the industry. I do believe that to an extent, right? There was still a monetary value in it, and I think we all need to just be honest with this, but I do believe that she had, in the earlier years, like a lot of the girls say, and like a lot of the judges say, I do believe maybe in the earlier years there was a lot more intention behind it. There was a lot more innocence behind it. There was a lot more of supportive environments, and where you did want to, I do believe that Tyra and her team, they did want to uplift people. But then we have to be honest with ourselves and say, fame, money, all of that can change anything for people, especially if you're younger, right? Like, she's probably what I am now. Like, I'm 31. She was probably around that age as well. I just can't imagine treating people this badly at my age now. You know what I mean? But anyways, so at first, you have to admit, I bet you the documentary people did a little bit of a gotcha with Tyra, and it started out, fine. It was very positive. It was just kind of highlighting Tyra and the judges' wins, and then it got dark. So there's two stories from the documentary that I really want to talk about that caught my eye. And the first one is Shawnee Sullivan's. And for those of you maybe don't recognize her name, she's the one that was 21 that worked on Walgreens, where her boyfriend Eric at the time encouraged her to apply for America's Next Top Model. Really encouraged her to just do it. As anybody would. That was her dream. And then, she's doing pretty well throughout the season. And then they go to Milan. And then that's where she gets drunk with the cast. They meet a couple boys. And then it kind of follows her into her night of, you could just tell she's extremely intoxicated and doesn't know what's going on. And they're filming her with this guy, and they go in the hot tub and like a bed. And then we don't know what happened. And Shandi, present day, she is talking about it, and she's visibly shaken. Like, you can see, without knowing any context at the moment, something happened, in my opinion. You can just see it. It reminds me a lot of the survivors with Epstein. Like, when I watch them talk and when I watch them recount as much as they feel comfortable doing, there is this, I always feel like there's this nervousness, which I understand. because it's a horrific event that happened to them. And I could only imagine that talking about it makes it just as hard, right? Because you're almost like reliving the experience again, no matter how many times you talk about it. And that's why I believe a lot of survivors don't talk about it. And obviously, I might be wrong. I can tell you now that I've never been a victim of sexual assault, but I just feel like some sort of real empathy and compassion to people who do, because it doesn't matter what gender you are. They're victims of sexual assault are real, and it doesn't matter what age, what gender. I think it's very, very, if we didn't know that before, we know that now, right? And I grew up reading a lot of, I'm going to butcher her name, but Jodi Picoult books. And The 10th Circle was one of the first books I read, and it was about sexual assault of a young girl. And I just think that growing up reading that sort of stuff, I just learned a lot of compassion. And like I like to think, I mean, obviously, there's just experiences I'll never understand, and hopefully I don't. But it's just reading those books as a young adult, growing up as a preteen. I am, yeah, I've always been one to believe victims. And maybe, and I've been wrong, don't get me wrong. I've been wrong, but just something in me just always believes a victim. Obviously, I have my wits about me, right? You can tell when someone's lying, but at least I like to think I can. But that's why I think I'm so vocal about it too. I also do know people personal to me that have gone through it. And I think that does kind of spark something in you, right? But I think it just as a whole, like we just need to do better at believing survivors and victims. And I'm not talking about people that are listening to this, because I'm sure if you're listening to this, we sort of have the same mindset. But I'm talking about the Epstein class. I'm talking about people higher up. I'm talking about wealthier people. I'm talking about people that really are so detached from the average person's life. So when I saw Shandy, you could just see in her demeanor that a horrific incident took place. You can also see that she was so young, no one protected her. So yeah, anyways, let me just go back into her story a little bit more. So the show, that episode sort of follows her when she wakes up the next day and she's realized that she did something, or that she's feeling really bad and really guilty, because the show very much focuses on Cheater. What bad Shandi has done. Why did you do this? It didn't really take into the fact that, hold on, this young 21-year-old girl who definitely looked way more wasted than the guy. I don't know about him, right? But you know who wasn't wasted? The staff and the crew. They didn't stop it. And they absolutely should have, because when things like that happen, especially behind closed doors, anything can happen to the vulnerable. You could just see that she's been made this villain already. You know, Shandy shares her side of the details of what happened. And when we hear her talk about it, it's so just horrendous. And okay, so I'm gonna read it. BuzzFeed, Yahoo got all the quotes for us. For us, you know what I mean. So I'm gonna read the quote. This is Shandi now. This was her and the guy back in the hot tub. So she goes, quote, "I don't think I'd eaten anything at all or had any sleep," Shandi says. "I remember getting into the hot tub, and then I just remember the guy looking at me, and I looked at him, and I was pretty drunk at that point. Everything kind of after that is just a blur. All I remember is him on top of me, and I was blacked out. No one did anything to stop it, and it all got filmed. All of it. Every moment. I didn't even feel sex happening. I just knew it was happening, and then I passed out. The next day I woke up and was like, holy shit, what the fuck happened last night? Fuck. It all fucking hit me. It flooded over me, and I just sat there and cried." It's just so horrific. So she, in my opinion, she got raped. It's just so disgusting. She was not coherent enough to even feel that the sex was happening. To me, that's forcing. And to me, in my opinion, she got raped. Allegedly, right? I have to say that, but like, what do you guys think? And, after the incident, she wanted to leave. She kept saying she wanted to leave. and production wouldn't let her leave. And she says, quote, I kept demanding I wanted to go home. I don't want to be a part of this anymore. And I demanded to talk to Eric, but they wouldn't give me my phone. And that's when I really wanted to go home. They tried to talk me out of it. And I was like, no. They were like, well, now we can get your phone. Now we can get you a phone, and we're going to film it. Yes, because she said that there were two cameramen and her when she was on the phone with Eric, and she was like scream crying. She was on the floor. She obviously didn't, in my opinion, I don't think she told him the extent of what happened. And he just was just like, we're done, blah, blah, it's over. Like kind of cussing her out. But I always wondered, like, did she ever have an opportunity to tell Eric what really happened until now? Because you can tell she loved him and she still probably loves him. That's really sad though, isn't it? Have you ever thought about that? Like, do you guys know anybody, or maybe you are yourself, where you had someone back in the day where maybe it was like a love like that, where they were the love of your life, but then something happened. It doesn't have to be this violent, of course, but like maybe something happened and, it's really sad. You could just tell that it really, to this day, like losing Eric, going through an horrific, what I would consider assault, and just no one protected her. And so, and another thing is, I remember reading somewhere, or actually, I don't want to I don't want to say this and it not be the truth, but I feel like I remember watching it live when Tyra, she had a show. And if I remember, Shondi went on that show, right? And they talked about it. And Tyra, again, kind of gaslit her from what I remember. I've got to look for that. But it doesn't look good. It looks horrific. And in fact, Netflix producers brought up the Shandy situation and Tyra glitched. It looked really bad. She was just like, yeah, I wasn't a part of it though. That was production. Girl, you own the show. You can't put your name as executive producer, founder, whatever, and not take credit. Oh, here it is. Here's the actual quote. She goes, I remember her. Well, no, I remember her. And adds, it's a little difficult to talk about production because that's not my territory. Yeah, when Tyra said that, I was like, girl, what? Not your territory? But she also emphasized how involved she was in producing the show. So it's easy to blame others. And I just think it's like no accountability. No accountability from all of them. And there's one more person I want to talk about, but I do want to highlight a couple things of the other judges. The other judges, Miss J, as oh my gosh, her story. Miss J, as you know, is now in a wheelchair. I believe she has cerebral palsy, was it? Yes, she has something so she can't walk anymore. And Miss J has not heard from Tyra in years. Tyra hasn't even checked in on Miss J, nothing. J. Alexander, the one who taught the models how to walk, no longer can walk right now. And Tyra wasn't there for Miss J. And it's just it just seems like Tyra Banks is a horrible friend. Smart businesswoman. You can't take her away from that, from her whole career. Horrible friend in person. And it's just like, it just is what it is. Do you know what I mean? It is what it is. And I have to also say, the early 2000s weren't for the weak. We can all admit that. The early 2000s was toxic. It was really toxic. When we look back at it, it was toxic in terms of pop culture and society norms, right? That's why the models talk about how they used to be viewed as the skinniest in their group or the thinnest in their group, but they go on America's Top Model and they're obese. Could you believe it? The next person I do want to talk about is Danny Evans. And Danny Evans was the young Black girl with the gap in her tooth that was so proud, and still is, proud of the gap in her tooth. And I felt her story was really heartbreaking because you hear about society, when we talk about society and the norms, you don't really, you always just think about, oh, well, you got to be thin, you got to have light skin, blah, blah. But then if you don't meet those categories and you get in, it's like nitpick other things, right? And I feel like if it's not your dark skin, it's like an attribute on your face. You know what I'm saying? And for her, Tyra Banks and the crew kept pushing for her to close the gap, and she was not having it. Danny was like, no, this is my identity. This is who I am. So Tyra Banks and the America's Next Top Model team encouraged Danny to get her gap, the gap between her tooth closed. Danny initially was like, no. She even was like, no, this is my identity. I am proud of my gap. Like, why would I want to close the gap between my teeth? And I get it. I absolutely understand. But she's, at the end of the day, she's also a young 20-year-old. Or even, how old was Danny at the time? Yeah, they're either late teens or early 20s, and she just wants to make it this is who she was. And you know, when you're so young and you want it to be your career, you are easily manipulated. You are. We were all easily manipulated about stuff when we were younger, whether we like to admit it or not. Even now, to this day, we're easily manipulated, let's be honest. Tyra Banks and the America's Next Top Models team were basically telling her, like, you need to do it or you're out, giving her an ultimatum, not even letting her like proceed with the just even try to see how far she could make it. No, she has to get it fixed. And so eventually Danny did agree to a partial filling after, you know, Tyra Banks did threaten to send her home, which I think is so sick. And ultimately, Danny ended up closing the gap of her tooth a little bit. More than she ever wanted, more than obviously she ever wanted because she didn't want it, period. But now there is still a little bit of a gap there, but it's not her original gap. Tyra Banks also did address this in the doc, and she said that she later apologized to Danny, but, and then she goes, wait, let me find the quote. Okay. She goes, that was a bit of a rock and a hard place for me because there were agents who would tell me she will not work with those teeth. They will not work with those teeth. It's not going to happen. That's what they told me. And again, I could have just been quiet and let them handle it. But in hindsight, this is 2020 for all of us. It just so happens that a lot of things that are 2020 for me happen in front of the world. Oh, and then Evans, so she heard what Banks said in the documentary about it, and she goes, bull fucking shit. Me getting my gap closed is not opening any doors for me. You know what you were doing for the show. You were making good TV at my expense. I agree. It's like there's really nothing that the judges can say about their behavior. Some have apologized. They apologized in the documentary and owned up to their behavior, but Tyra didn't. Tyler really didn't. And it wasn't until an interview with like the Today Show where Miss J and the two other judges went and joined, and they all basically said, like, Tyra, just come out and say you were wrong. And the problem is you're so egotistical that you can't even admit when you were fully wrong. And the whole thing is wrong. You can say, listen, if she just came out and said, listen, I was wrong. The early 2000s, it was hard on me. It was hard on all of us. I regret everything I said. I've personally reached out to all of them over the years. I have been there for them, you know, et cetera, et cetera. But she hasn't. She hasn't done any of that. She kept growing and successful, becoming more successful. The models in that show, no one really heard of them. Have you noticed that? They actually said that. A couple of the models were like, have you realized that no one from America's Next Top Model made it? Being on America's Next Top Model apparently reduced their opportunities in the modeling world. When I was watching that, I have to say, I was a bit shocked. I was a bit surprised at what we were watching, how that was allowed. Today it won't be allowed. And I think we do also need to just be honest and be like, the early 2000s were different. There were. Society norms, everything was different. But is that an excuse? No. That doesn't excuse bad behavior. We can recognize that society was different at the time. Now it's up to you to be the strongest soldier and not to give in, right? So that was the Tyra Banks, and I'm sure I've missed a lot, but I just really wanted to get that off my chest because as a millennial, I was looking at it like, what? It's just so toxic, just such toxic behavior we grew up with. So just to keep on the millennial theme, there was some piece of news I saw on social media that honestly I was like, dang, because I was just thinking about pap smears the other day because I went and got mine earlier in the summer, and you don't have to get them every couple of years, but Snooki has said, Snooki, remember Snooki from Jersey Shore? Snooki says that she's been diagnosed with stage 1 cervical cancer. She's 38 years old. I don't care, ladies. Go get your pap smear. If you don't remember the last time you got your pap smear, and even if it was a year ago, go get it right now. Go book the appointment, go get checked, go get your pap smear because we need to start leveling up our health for real. Because I think pap smears are one of the ones people overlook. And I'm saying this from experience, but also my friendship circle. The other day, and this is why I was gonna do a whole episode on pap smears even before Snooki, and not even waiting until Women's Health Month. which is in May, by the way. So we're going to be really leveling up then. But I think a lot of young women are really scared to get pap smears because they're scared of putting something up there. It's cold. There's that feeling, that what is that called? Right? That harsh feeling on your vagina. And it's like that that rough, harsh feeling on your vagina. I don't know how to explain it, girls, but you know what I'm talking about. No, I don't give a damn. Trust me, as you get older, you're just like, girl, I'll just do it. Just lay back, spread wide, and let's just get up in there and do it. I don't give a damn. I don't care. It's a feeling. It will be done in 2 minutes. And it's not that bad. Let's be honest. I think there's a lot of more fear in it. And I wonder if that's just the kiki of talking about it. It doesn't matter. Yes, it's uncomfortable. It's done. It saves years of your life potentially. And the thing is, Snooki went, she caught it. Go right now. Go get your pap smear. It is so important. And in fact, when I was doing my Black History Month research, do you want to know who was a part of the big push for pap smears? Did you know that actually a lot of the reasons why, especially for Black women, why we have access to pap smears is because of Dr. Helen Dickerson. Dickens. Is it Dickerson or Dickens? Dickens, Helen Dickens. She was, and let me show you her picture. I can't believe it. I was going to do a whole thing on her. But then I just saw this news and I was like, you know what? I'm just going to put everything together. This is her. This is Dr. Dickinson. Oh, I don't know why I keep calling it Dickinson. Dickens. I don't know why I keep calling it Dickinson. But anyways, this is Helen Dickerson. And she was one of the reasons why a lot of Black women have access to pap smears, because back in the 1950s, I believe, she's the first Black OBGYN, or one of the first. And back in the 50s, I believe, she worked with the people that invented the pap smear to get as many Black women as possible to take the brand new medical test at the time, the pap smear. And in fact, that sort of set the tone for a lot of Black women being like, oh, wait, it works. We need to go get this every other year. So if it wasn't for her, and still there's a lot of Black women that don't, by the way. Yet, here we go. 1950, she became the first certified OBGYN, American board certified OBGYN in Philly. And because of her, and because of her voice within the Black community, but I just think with women in general that listened to her, obviously during segregated times, the pap smear saved thousands of women's lives. So it is really important we go get our pap smears for Helen Dickens, who became the first. Can you believe that? That's so cool. Go look her up. She's amazing. She's awesome. And what was cool about Dr. Helen Dickens, is she was the daughter of a slave. So could you imagine a daughter of a slave helped promote and invent the pap smear? All right, everyone, that was America's Next Top Model, and just a reminder to go get your freaking pap smear, because it's not a joke out here, for real. So according to the National Cancer Institute, the rate of new cases of cervical cancer was 7.7 per 100,000 women a year. The death rate is 2.2 per 100,000 women a year. Go get your pap smear. It is higher in Black women, y'all, for real. So go get your pap smear. There was roughly 660,000 new cases just in 2022. So go get your pap smear. It's time. It's I don't care. What we gotta do? What do I gotta do to motivate? It just, with fucking America, it just sucks because there's no freaking healthcare. Just talk about my personal experience. I go to a women's clinic. I go to Tia. I don't know if you have a Tia near you. I know that sometimes they have bad reviews. My branch actually is really good. So going to a women's clinic has changed everything for me. It's made me more confident to go. So maybe that might help. Maybe just a little bit there. Guys, just go get it. Just go get your scans, for real. Go get your PTE scans. Because then, doesn't the PTE PET scan, you know what I mean? PTE, what is it? PET? It's PET scan. When your PET scan, I think that also, from what the only reason why I know this, because they tell you all this at the doctors, but I think if I was to have it, we would then have to go get a scan to make sure it didn't spread to other parts of your body, right? So that's the thing. Once you find something, they can then, make sure everything else is up to par. So listen, Women's Health Month, May, I'm not playing. That's my birthday month. I'm not playing. I'm going to do 7 episodes a week. I'm going to make sure. And then Men's Health Month, I'm not playing either. Go get your prostate cancer figured out. See, this is America. We have a real problem. No universal health care. This is why we're all so screwed. Well, anyways, thank you all for listening. I'll be back with more politics. This was a political cleanser. I'll be back with more politics because Peter Mandelson just got arrested. It looks like, thank goodness. All right, thank you for listening. Go get your pap smears. Bye.